What is going on? It is Nate the Game Guy coming back with another video at hand, and today I want to talk about a new interest that I have when it comes to collecting games, and that is collecting for the PS4. The PS4 was easily one of my favorite consoles from the 8th generation of games. It has a ton of great games. The games are so cheap. I love collecting them because they're so cheap. The games are good, and there's just a lot that I enjoy about collecting for the PS4. I'm going to be talking about some of the pros when it comes to collecting for the PS4, go into more detail as to why I love collecting for it so much, talk about some of those good deals that you can get your hands on today, and all that wonderful stuff. So without further ado, let's jump right into this video's topic right after the intro. Back during the fall of 2013, Sony took the gaming world by storm when it released the PlayStation 4 in North America, thanks to its aggressive marketing, which easily convinced consumers to purchase a PlayStation 4 instead of an Xbox One. Also, with Microsoft's past mistakes with the Xbox One earlier that year, a phenomenal lineup of games that would easily be introduced onto the console later down the line, along with a ton of other factors that played a huge role into the PlayStation 4's success. The PlayStation 4 is the 5th best selling game console of all time, which has sold just a little over 117 million units according to Wikipedia. Therefore, since the console sold so well, a lot of people picked up a lot of games, and because there were so many games that were purchased for the console itself, there was a lot of supply that has been put out onto the secondary market of pre-owned video games, allowing for people to easily scoop up many deals for great prices when it comes to collecting for the PlayStation 4. Of course, thanks to the PlayStation 4's success, I've had no trouble at all finding deals and scooping up deals for the PlayStation 4 when I've been searching online, going to garage sales, thrift stores, and all that wonderful stuff. As you can see, I've picked up a lot of great PlayStation 4 games from lots of different stores, online sellers, and all that wonderful stuff. It's thankfully, because the PlayStation 4 was so successful, it's very easy to find lots of PlayStation 4 games when it comes to many different resale shops, thrift stores, garage sales. I've picked up a few from garage sales, of course, the thrift stores, some online deals and all that stuff. And of course, when you are searching online, not hard at all to find some good deals when it comes to collecting for the PlayStation 4, especially with lots on eBay, where you can get a whole huge chunk of games for not that much money, where essentially, like some cases where if you find like a lot of 10 for $50, you're essentially paying only $5 per game, which, if you really think about it, for some of these games, that's actually a pretty good deal, which I think is something that's worth considering when it comes to collecting for the PlayStation 4. Now, I do realize that the PlayStation 4 is not as collectible as, say, GameCube, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, all that wonderful stuff. But of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should ignore some good deals, especially with a great console such as the PlayStation 4. I've had some great memories over the 8th generation when it comes to playing on the PlayStation 4. There's been a ton of great games, and of course, since these games are not very expensive to collect for, they're pretty cheap actually, in my opinion. I think it is really worth considering for a lot of collectors, especially right now, that you might want to jump in on some of those deals for the PlayStation 4 because, yeah, it's not as collectible as, say, some of the old school Nintendo consoles and old school Sega consoles and all that wonderful stuff. But as I mentioned from before, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should pass up on a good deal. So I have to say, I think right now is a phenomenal time to get started when it comes to collecting for the PlayStation 4. Lots of great deals. You don't really have to go too far out of your way to find these great deals. And there are so many great games for the PlayStation 4. I strongly recommend for a lot of collectors to take advantage of this opportunity. Now, of course, I do have to talk about some game recommendations for the PlayStation 4. All these games that I am going to recommend are relatively cheap titles. They are going to be a mixture of first-party and third-party releases for the PlayStation 4. There are other games that I would love to recommend for the PlayStation 4, but I want to keep things relatively cheap and stay consistent about this video's subject. So I'll start off the list with Battlefield 4. Battlefield 4 was a great launch title for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One back in 2013. It had a really fun online multiplayer and also has a pretty solid single-player campaign too. While I will admit this isn't my favorite Battlefield title, that honor goes to Bad Company 2, but I will say Battlefield 4 is an overall pretty fun game, and for the price that you can pick it up for, I would strongly recommend it. From what I hear, it still has a pretty solid online community, so if you do have the chance, I would strongly recommend picking up a copy of Battlefield 4 for the PS4. Another great third-party release for the PlayStation 4 that I strongly recommend is Doom from 2016. What I really liked about this game was that its campaign had its very modernized first-person shooter campaign, but it still had its elements that reminded you that you are playing Doom. It was essentially like the old classic Doom titles mixed in with some modern elements, which I really liked. I liked the atmosphere and I liked the overall story of the campaign. The multiplayer was also really fun too. I really like the fact that, like I said, it felt very similar to what an old traditional style Doom game would feel like, mixed in with some modern multiplayer elements. It is rather unfortunate that the community has dropped down to the point where you're very lucky if you're even capable of finding a match, but despite that setback, you can still enjoy a relatively fun, interesting campaign with Doom 2016 for the PS4. A great compilation title for cheap that I recommend for the PlayStation 4 is Crash Insane Trilogy. The Crash Bandicoot games on the original PlayStation were absolute classics. They were great platformers, they were a ton of fun, and they were very iconic games. Of course, with Crash Insane Trilogy, you get to relive some of those classics with some updated graphics, updated details, along with a few extra perks that you unfortunately were not able to get in the original PlayStation releases. Of course, I do think that the original PlayStation releases are a lot more iconic, but considering that this is a very cheap title to collect for, it also has a bunch of fun games on there. It is a compilation title that I strongly recommend picking up if you're looking for a good pickup for relatively cheap for the PS4 and have yourself a good time. Now, this is a game that is a strong recommendation of mine when it comes to the PlayStation 4, and that is Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. This game had an incredible story. It had a really fun single-player campaign to it. Of course, being a huge Metal Gear Solid fan, I really enjoyed this title. Unfortunately, this was, in my opinion, the last good Metal Gear Solid title that was released because, unfortunately, Konami had some issues and Hideo Kojima also had some issues with Konami, which unfortunately created a bit of a problem when it came to the Metal Gear Solid franchise. But I do have to say this game went out with a bang when it came to Kojima's work because it was just very fun. The story was great. It was very iconic. And if this is a game that you have not played yet, I strongly recommend playing it. It is incredibly fun and I cannot recommend it enough. Now, this will be my last recommendation for this video when it comes to cheap PlayStation 4 games, and that is Killzone Shadowfall. Now, some people did not enjoy this game back in its day. Me personally, I did enjoy Killzone Shadowfall. Maybe I'm a little different, but that's okay. But overall, I thought that Killzone Shadowfall had a relatively fun campaign. I don't think it was like the best campaign in the world or like some award-winning campaign, but for what it was, I thought it was pretty fun, and especially since this is a game that's really cheap to pick up now, I think it is worth picking up at this point. Of course, I do consider this to be an underrated title when it comes to the PlayStation 4. Unfortunately, since we are talking about an 11-year-old game at this point, the community has died quite a bit, so if you are lucky to find a match, it's quite a bit of luck right there, considering how much the community has dropped down at this point. Of course, like I said, it is an underrated title, and I do have a video where I talk about all these underrated titles for not just for PlayStation 4, but also Xbox One, that I'll be linking somewhere for you guys to check out. It has a ton of great games that I strongly recommend that you guys look into, because these are some great games that unfortunately did not get the spotlight that they deserved back in their day. But I'll wrap it up right here to Killzone Shadowfall when it comes to my PlayStation 4 recommendations. I'll be putting out a video someday where I talk all about cheap PlayStation 4 games that you guys should check out. But this is just a little sampler of just some cheap PS4 games that you guys can find when it comes to collecting for the PS4. Alright, and that is going to conclude this video's topic. What do you guys think? Have you guys took advantage of this opportunity when it comes to collecting for the PS4? What are some cheap games that you recommend for the PS4? Do you like collecting for the PS4 already? Feel free to comment in the comment section down below. I would love to hear from you guys, see what you guys have to say. Of course, give this video a like. Helps boost it up into the YouTube algorithm so more viewers such as you can find videos just like this. Of course, please do consider subscribing, because I post a lot of content when it comes to game collecting tips, game-related subjects. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, please do consider subscribing. But if you're going to subscribe, don't forget to hit that bell notification button so that way you will be notified when I upload a video just like this. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll be seeing you guys next time.